iQOO 9SE and the Realme GT2 are two performance-focused smartphones that are priced very similarly. So what are the differences between these two Snapdragon triplets sporting almost flagships? Is one better than the other? Let's find out in today's video. Hey guys, Ash here from C4E Tech, and if you do end up liking what you see in this video, thumbs up, subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that bell icon. Let's get started. From a form factor perspective, both these phones are quite similar. Now that's because they use the same size display. We get 6.62-inch Super AMOLED panels with 120Hz refreshes. These are both beautiful panels with very little between them. Now that doesn't mean they are exactly the same either. The GT2 has a slightly higher peak brightness, 1300 nits compared to 1200 on the iQOO. Also, Realme's used Gorilla Glass 5 for protection, while iQOO hasn't really confirmed anything on their website, though I've read a few reports stating Panda Glass or Shot Sensation up. So maybe theoretically there is a slight edge for the Realme, but practically display shouldn't be a deciding factor for anyone looking to choose between these two phones. Similar size displays also lead to similar overall footprints, with there not being any notable differences so far. Let's move on to the materials used. Here iQOO has a glass finish to their back. Realme offers that only on their black variant, but personally I love this GT2's design, this one. The biopolymer back here, it has that texture going for it, making it one of the grippiest designs available today. If you are someone who likes to use their phone without a case, then Realme is most definitely going to be advantageous for you. But apart from that, once again, there's not a lot between these two phones, and guys, you're gonna keep hearing me say this over and over in this video because these two are pretty darn close. Now under the hood, no surprises, we have identical internals. Both phones are powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon triplet, last year's flagship SoC. They're paired with 8 or 12 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM, 128 or 256 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage. The actual performance, that slightly differs. iQOO pulls ahead with Antutu, does slightly better with multi-core scores on Geekbench, but Realme has the single-core advantage and remains more consistent, throttling down to 82% of peak performance compared to 75% on the iQOO. So maybe if you're looking to game a lot, then the Realme might have an edge. Not just with performance, but also battery, the iQOO 9SE sports a respectable 4500 mAh unit, while the GT2 offers 500 mAh more. And that reflects with the actual use. It's not just a theory thing. I'd say the GT2 does last about 10% longer on average. At least it did in my week with it. I did end up spending a week each with both phones as my primary smartphone. So if you expect your use case to be heavy, the extra 500 mAh might matter to you. The charging situation, on the other hand, it's more or less the same, 66 watts for the iQOO, 65 for the Realme. Of course, iQOO does charge a tad faster due to the lower capacity battery. Now moving on to software, both phones come with Android 12 out of the box with their respective custom skins on top. FunTouch OS on the iQOO, Realme UI on the Realme. Both skins have their own pros and cons if you're gonna nitpick, but overall they're both feature packed, they're stable, relatively bug free. From a user experience perspective, you should be fine regardless of whichever one you end up choosing. There, however, are two notable differences here. First, the haptic feedback, it's pretty weak on the iQOO 9SE. The response you get when you're typing something, it's just not as good as you find on the GT2. Now this is something I'm sure you're gonna get used to in a bit. It's not a huge difference maker, it's not a huge deal breaker, but the other one, well, that's a little bigger. While iQOO promises 2 years of updates and 3 years of security patches, Realme goes one step further, promising 1 extra year of both. So you get 3 years of Android updates and 4 years of security patches. So if you're someone who's looking to retain their phone for more than just a couple of years, then maybe Realme could have an edge in this category. And with that, let's talk cameras. We get triple camera setups on both these phones, and starting with the primary, we have a 48 megapixel Sony IMX598 on the iQOO compared to a larger 50 megapixel IMX766 on the Realme, both paired with f1.8 lenses that have optical stabilization. Now that's the theoretical part. The actual difference, it's pretty negligible, under good light at least. The colors are a tad brighter and cooler on the iQOO. Realme goes for a more contrasty look with warmer tones, which I personally prefer. But hey, let me clear this up. This is just a personal preference. When you look close, say with the detail, as you can see, there's not a difference really. Again, with dynamic range, brightest point, darkest point, not much of a difference. So under good light, both these cameras perform very similarly. Under low light, here the IMX766 on the Realme is technically supposed to do better. It is the larger sensor after all. But when you see these images side by side, the first thing you think is, hey, iQOO's brighter. How could iQOO actually capture brighter images despite having the smaller sensor? I decided to dig deeper and I noticed IQOO using almost 3x the ISO as Realme. Like here, 1166 on the GT2, 3900 ISO on the IQOO. In this case, 1544 versus 3941. Here, 695 versus 2710. Now, usually higher ISO means higher noise. So zooming in, you should see more noise on the IQOO, right? But that isn't what's happening here, because IQOO's software seems to be doing a real good job in cleaning up the image to the point where the detail and the noise levels, they're pretty similar across these two. So just looking at these images under low light, the same brighter look that in the last round caused me to prefer the Realme, here it makes me prefer the IQOO. But once again, this is personal preference, both of them are just fine. With ultra wide, we get a 13 megapixel snapper on the IQOO going up against an 8 megapixel sensor on the Realme. Here, images seem similar for the most part, but when you zoom in, you can see that Realme tends to over sharpen things a little too aggressively, I guess, to make up for the lack of resolution. But that's a very small thing, because like I've said in the past, you don't shoot ultra wide when you want to zoom in. The actual difference that matters to me here are colors, which seem to pop better on the IQOO. I'd say IQOO is one step over natural with colors at times, whereas Realme is 2 steps under natural looking, maybe a little bit washed out. So with ultra-wides, I'm gonna have to go with the IQOO. Now both of them have 2 megapixel third cameras, depth with IQOO, macro with Realme. They're just there to make up numbers, so ignoring them, let's move on to video. Here's where Realme gets a solid win over the IQOO. At 4K 60, IQOO doesn't give you EIS or OIS, resulting in shaky footage, while Realme remains quite stable. This is a market difference. And finally, with selfies, we have similar 16 megapixel sensors, but with Realme, it's paired with a f2.5 lens compared to f1.8 on the IQOO. And the selfie shot with the IQOO had a tad bit more detail, but I do like the skin tones and more importantly, the wider field of view that Realme has to offer. So to sum it up, with optics, the primary cameras are comparable. IQOO has a slight edge with ultra-wides. Realme has a slight edge with selfies. The one major difference, the one major win in this video is for video stabilization to Realme. So there are some things that I've not really talked about in this video, like headphone jack, 5G bands, speakers, in-display scanners, etc. Now that's because they are more or less evenly matched. Both these phones on all those fronts evenly matched, so nothing between them. So where does that leave us? With pricing, they're again very close to each other, so that isn't a deal breaker either. Now, IQOO does have an edge there with a slightly lower price tag. IQOO also fares better with ultra-wides and will charge faster due to the smaller battery. The Realme, on the other hand, is the phone to go with if you like using your phone without a case. It does better video, has the promise of an extra year of Android updates and security patches, and about 10% more battery life. Now, if these advantages you think are worth a slightly higher asking price, then get the GT2. Else, just take a look at both these phones, see what you think looks better in your hand, and go for it. Because barring these minor differences, both the IQOO 9 SE and the Realme GT2 are very, very evenly matched, and that's basically my conclusion here. Whatever looks better to you, go with it, because there's not a lot between these two phones, and that's pretty much it for this comparison video. Do you have a different point of view? Do you feel there's something that I've kind of not focused on? Is there anything else that you would have talked about if you were me? Let me know in the comments below, and also when you're down there, thumbs up, thumbs down based on however you felt about this video. Subscribe, turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you haven't yet, and thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for your time. Until next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4E Tech, and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.